This chair has ended more races than pain ever has. And the funny thing is that this chair is actually not a very nice chair. It was $40 at Canadian Tire. It's kind of a crappy chair. It's not super comfortable. It's not very flashy. It's actually a very dangerous chair. This chair is you. This chair represents being paralyzed, being stuck, being comfortable. I'm an ultramarathoner. I've ran some crazy events over the years. I've pushed myself to the limit. And one event that I've ran before, I've done it 4 times. It's called the Backyard Ultra. And the format of the Backyard Ultra is really simple for dumb guys like me. You run a 6.7 kilometer loop over and over and over. It's a last man standing event. And so the way it works is 100 people toe the line, and you have to run the 6.7 kilometers every hour on the hour until you can't go anymore. The concept's really simple. If it takes you 45, 50 minutes to run the loop, you have 10 minutes to come back and sit in your really crappy chair. You might get first aid, you might eat, you might grab a 3-minute cat nap. Whatever it means, you keep coming back to this chair and you keep going. And the event is really interesting because it goes on for like literally days. The world record is somewhere around 105 hours. So the event goes on for a long, long time. People run hundreds and hundreds of miles in this format. And the race is over when you decide. You get to decide when you can't go anymore. And we have this sort of shared mantra amongst us that run these events. And what we tell each other is, whatever you do, just don't quit in your chair. Just get up and try go again, because you have to get back to the line for the next hour to keep going. Because when you get to this chair, the funny thing is, after you've been running for like 20 hours, this chair actually gets pretty comfortable. And your brain starts to tell you, yeah, just don't get up. The weather gets hot, your body starts to get beat down, your mind starts playing tricks on you, you get super comfortable. And it's really hard to get out of this chair. And I think we get caught in life the same way. We live in these patterns. We kind of get out there, we keep doing our thing, and we get stuck. But there's so much more potential that we have left in us if we would just have the courage to get out of our current comfortable chair. And that's what the book is all about. I wrote the book, Disappear for a Year, for that exact same spirit, that exact same reason. And the thing is I didn't set out to write a book. I really didn't. I took a dare. I heard this dare and said, I dare you. And I'm daring you. I dare you. I dare you to disappear for a year. No posting, no boasting. Become a ghost. Work on yourself. And level up every area of your life. And in a year from now, come back unrecognizable. I heard those words at a time in my life when I really needed it. It was kind of like the universe's divine intervention for me. I had spent 20 plus years working in the financial services industry, climbing the corporate ladder, working for the bank, in a job that I poured my heart and soul into. I moved across the entire province, moved my family. I bled for the company. And one day, new leadership came in and decided I wasn't a great fit, restructured the team. I got a handshake and a check on a random Tuesday. In my 22 years of service, felt like it meant nothing. And at the time, I was super bitter. I was angry and I was hurt. I was embarrassed. I was pissed off. But as I reflected on that, it was the greatest gift I could have ever received. Because I had spent all this time climbing this ladder, this corporate ladder, only to realize that my ladder was leaned up against the wrong building. That wasn't my passion. That wasn't my purpose. That wasn't my calling. And I knew that there was something more that I needed to have and could give. And so I took some time and I heard this dare. And it was kind of near the start of a new year. You know when you make the resolutions in January and everybody's got these great intentions? I've never been a resolution guy because I just don't believe them. I think many people set resolutions out of motivation, but it fades super quick. But I knew this was something more. Like if I was going to get really serious and disappear, and I didn't have to master every area of my life, just level up one. Everything. Fitness, mental, social, spiritual, my joy, my giving, my family, my circle. Just one level. If I could do that, you wouldn't recognize me in a year. And that's what I did. I didn't set out to write a book, to be honest. I set out to just transform myself. And when I went through this process, when I went dark, the things I learned were so profound that I had no choice but to share that. And that's what brought this book, Disappear for a Year, to life. And so as people have been reading it, if you've already picked it up, thank you. But as people have been engaging it and sort of hearing me talk a little bit about it, I've been sharing it, the question always comes up, well, what does it mean to disappear? Like, how do you disappear? Do you just like peace out and go sit on a deserted island and like drink coconut juice with a volleyball named Wilson and just call it a day? I would love that. I would sign up for that for sure. It's different, but it's not what it is. It's really not. It's different for everyone, but it's an intentional sort of movement into this place of solitude. And the analogy I use is, it's kind of like a hurricane, right? Our lives are just like that. Our worlds are busy and chaotic and frantic, and there's all this noise in our world. But like a hurricane, at the very center, it's dead calm. And so yes, you have kids and jobs, responsibilities, and all those things, but how often have we given ourselves that space to really go within and discover who we are? And what I learned was there's a lot of the chaos out there that we could control, that I could control. And so one of the things I did was I took an audit. When I thought about all the areas of my life, I started to audit each of them and thought about what are the distractions that I have? What are the things I'm carrying around that are just like holding me back? And how do I give myself some space? And so for me, I got really serious and really intentional. If you take the dare, you can't toe in. You got to go all in. And so in the book, what I talk about is all these different areas of your life that you can really think about, take the audit, and then work on leveling them up. But tonight what I wanted to do is I wanted to focus in on 4 of them. The 4 that I found for me had the most impact and had the most sort of benefit, and I just grew the most from. And I'm going to invite you to disappear. And we're going to start with probably the most obvious one. Social media. The average person picks up their phone 175 times a day. That's the average person. As I look into the audience and know many of the faces in here, I know that I've got a lot of above average people here. I'm also above average. But the average person also spends 75 hours a month on social media. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, all the above. Plus, since I like stats, we also spend on average 40 hours a month streaming media. Netflix, Amazon Prime, YouTube, Paramount, Sportsnet, all the above. I'm looking at the mirror when I say this. And so when you think about that, when you do the math, the banker in me never dies, you spend 1 month a year consuming content and media. you spend 1 month a year staring into your palms. If you take that out over 5 years, you'll spend a year of your life consuming media and content. And I don't know about you guys, but when I think about that, when I look at my algorithm, the media that's coming at me, man, it's not good, is it? There's so much hate and Epstein stuff and wars and conflict and all this nonsense about trying to separate us. And it just feels like the world is just so noisy. And I'm the last guy that will tell you that I'm anti-tech or anti-technology. But I think the observation I have is that as we move forward, as technology evolves, it's exponentially changing. If you think back to 1969, when the Apollo 11 took Neil Armstrong and friends to the moon, or didn't, depending on how big of a conspiracy theory person you are, we could have a good chat about that one. Regardless, the technology that it took to launch the Apollo 11 into space, land it on the moon, bring it back, land it back safely on Earth, took thousands of scientists, billions of dollars in today's terms. Fast forward to today, the average 14-year-old has 125,000 times the computing power in their back pocket on their iPhone. Just think about that. Think about how much our world has changed in such a short period of time with AI and all this coming. It's only going faster. I was someone that slept with my phone beside my bed. I would turn my alarm off. I would check to make sure I had any emails. I would check all my socials in order, same order every day, just like a trained monkey. And I would go through every app and see if I had any notifications, anything cool came up. Got to get the dopamine first thing. And so before my feet even hit the ground, the world was screaming at me. And I knew that was one of the biggest places I had so much distraction and time wasted. And so I took a break from it all. I cut it all. I got a brand new phone number. I deleted all the social apps. The only thing I left on my phone were things that were utility. Banking apps, calculator, flashlight. Anything that had a social component to it, I killed it. I kept a couple apps and just took them away. Like I didn't want to lose my memories on Facebook, and so I just killed the app, but I took it off. And here's the funny thing that I learned and I observed. It was very liberating and humbling. Nobody cared. I didn't want to be one of these people that made this big grand announcement of like, hey everybody, I'm taking a break on social media, just thought I'd let you know I'll be back in 30 days or a year. And I didn't do that. I picked a date on the calendar and I cut it. Nobody noticed and nobody cared, which surprises me because I had some really cool running videos to share every single day and pictures of my shoes, all the stuff I was doing. Nobody cared. Nobody noticed. And that was so liberating because that gave me so much time back. It was hard. I'd leave my phone in other rooms and like go anywhere. Go to any restaurant. Watch the couple on their date, both on their phones, standing in line. You just get itchy. I bet you guys are getting a little tweaky now, right? Because we've asked you to turn your phones off. You guys are going to have so many messages waiting for you when you're done here that are so important. That's the hardest thing to break. Again, I'm not anti-technology, but that was a huge one for me, is breaking that. Probably one of my favorite icons of all time is Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, as everybody knows, is legendary. And he really defines what it means to disappear for a year in his story. Because if you think back to 1967, Muhammad Ali was the heavyweight champ of the world. He was this larger-than-life figure, always in the spotlight, always in the media, cocky, loud, had the coolest things he would always say. He was undefeated. He was this huge, huge icon. In 1967, he gets drafted to fight in the Vietnam War. And because of his religious beliefs and his background and his personal beliefs, he refused to go. And so gets arrested, and he gets banned from boxing. He gets banned for over 3 years. They strip his title away, and he has to start over. Eventually, in 1970, he gets the fight again. He comes back. And the world is anticipating him to just pick up where he left off on this epic run. But what happened? He came back, and Joe Frazier was the champion. He had a couple warm-up fights, and then he fought Joe Frazier. And it was called the fight of the century. The world was so excited to see the champion come back. And if you know your history, you know that he lost. In a 15-round decision, was given his first loss. But it's what he did next is what no one expected, is he disappeared. Instead of he had access to all the best gyms and technology and everything he could have his hands on. Instead of that, Muhammad Ali bought a small little piece of land in this little hamlet called Deer Lake, Pennsylvania, which is there's like handful of people. There's more livestock than people in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania. And he bought this land and he called it Fighter's Heaven. And on his Fighter's Heaven, he built a little cabin for himself. No electricity, no running water. He had a hand pump. He built 2 little cabins where he'd bring training partners in to fight with him and train him. He built a small little mosque where he'd meditate and pray. And then he built his gym. And it's at Fighter's Heaven that he reinvented himself. He found through the solitude and the isolation that he was able to really get focused and remove all of the distractions. He worked on new techniques like rope-a-dope and all these combinations. He learned what his strengths were and what he really had to bring and how he could use those to his advantage. And he also looked at his weaknesses, and he worked on those. And then eventually he worked himself back up to another championship fight. This time, George Foreman was the champion. And his fight was in the Congo, and it was called the Rumble in the Jungle. And there was 60,000 people that went there to watch this fight. And over 60,000 people, or 60% of the world, I should say, tuned in to watch this thing. It was the largest spectacle the world had seen. And Muhammad Ali, from all the things he learned in Fighter's Heaven, used his strategy and ended up knocking out George Foreman in the 7th round, using his rope-a-dope tactics and some of the strategies he taught himself in Fighter's Heaven. He went on to a 56-5 career and is still iconic. And since then, boxers and fighters have emulated that same approach of looking for isolation and solitude to prepare themselves for their next fights, for these important fights. And that's what disappearing for a year is. It's about finding this solitude, finding this space for you to really understand what are your strengths? What are your passions? What lights you up? How do you leverage those to get to where you want to go? What are your weaknesses? What are the areas that you know you're playing your hand small in? And here's a question. Think about what your Fighter's Heaven might look like. Who are the training partners? Who are the people that you would invite to be in your Fighter's Heaven? Because that's the second most important piece about leveling up. It's your circle. I think we all know this. We become a product of the 5 people we spend the most time with. The people who get the most access to us, have the most time with us. That really defines who we become. And this probably was one of the hardest things I had to do, was audit my circle. What you'll find when you do this is you're going to find there's 3 types of people in your circle. There's anchors, There's passengers, and there's engines. The anchors in your life are the people that say things like, what are you doing? You can't do that. Are you crazy? That's nuts. That'll never work. What's wrong with you? They're the negative people, the people that suck the life out of you. The people that when you spend time with them, it just like takes all of your energy. And the funny thing is, it's often the people closest to us that are the anchors. And the reason why they're anchors and why they pull you down is because when people see someone really striving for their dreams and pushing towards their goals and trying to separate and go to another level, it reminds them that they're playing their hand small. And it's way easier to pull you down than it is to raise you up. And then you have your passengers. Your passengers are the people that are just kind of like just chill. They're just happy. They're just doing whatever. They're happy drinking a beer, watching football on Sundays and whatever. And if you tell them your goals and you're excited, like, yeah, whatever, go ahead, do what you want to do. They're the people that are along for the ride. But they're not going to push you forward. And they're not going to be the ones that probably motivate you and mentor you. And they're probably around for just a season. But then you have the engines. The engines in your life are the people that have your back, that will be there for you. They say, yes, let's go. They'll encourage you. They'll support you. They're there for you. They're the people that will check you when maybe you're drifting just a little bit, when you're not really living up to what you should be. Those are the people that can do it with love, but they'll call you out. When I did my disappear for a year, I told you I killed my phone. I got a brand new phone, a brand new phone number. And before I got my new phone, I went through all my contacts and I backed it all up. And then I thought, okay, when I get my new phone number, I'm only going to give 5 people my new number. And the criteria was you need to be an engine. You need to be someone that really inspires and motivates me and has my back. So I went through all of my contacts. And I remember at the time, years ago, there used to be, like back in the day when cell phones were kind of new, there was this plan they used to market called My5. And the advertising was all about, you can have up to 5 people, unlimited calling and texting. Who's going to be on your 5? And it was a big sort of campaign that they launched. And I thought, I'm going to use that same methodology. Who's going to make up my 5? And so I went through all my contacts with that criteria. And you know, the funny thing is I only had 4 people. I thought, okay, well, that's okay, because over the course of this year, I'll find one more person to round out my 5. And I'm not someone that thinks I'm the greatest thing. But what I realized over time was the dreams and the goals that I've had, I've often downplayed them for the rooms that I've been in. I've played my hand small to not intimidate or make people feel insecure around me. And I knew that it was time to pick a new room. Because if you're the smartest person in the room you're in, you need to find a new room. Because you can't level up if you're sitting around with a bunch of passengers. And I knew I had to find some new rooms. And I really saw this a while ago, and it clicked in recently, like this whole engines, passengers thing. I learned it in 2016. That was the first time I really got a glimpse of my circle. And in 2016, I ran Alberta from the very top to the very bottom. It was 1,600 kilometers, 38 back-to-back marathons I ran that summer from the top of the province at Northwest Territories to the United States border. By far the hardest thing I'd ever done. Took a lot of planning, a lot of logistics, a lot of convincing Sasha to follow me down the side of a highway in an SUV for an entire summer. And I had all these plans, and I finally got to the stage, okay, I think I can do this, let's go. And so the first thing I had to do was I had to figure out how I could get the time off work. So I went to my boss at the time, Steve Fedorchuk, who, no surprise, is sitting in the front row and is somebody that's been a key leader and a key member of my circle for a long time. And I went to my engine, Steve, said, hey, Steve, I need like 5 weeks off of work this summer. I'm running across the province for the Canadian Mental Health Association, and I want to know if I can take the time off. And Steve was like, absolutely. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard. We're totally doing this. You've got this. We're going to sponsor you. We're going to do all this stuff. We're going to be behind you. I'll get it approved. Don't worry about it. And Steve has been like such a great leader and mentor for me because that's been who he's been to me. He's a guy that believes in me sometimes more than I did. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. And then the second person that I had to find is like, I had no experience like running all of this volume. I've ran marathons, of course, all these things, but at this was a whole different can of worms. So I'm like, I gotta find someone that can actually help me do this because I have no idea what I'm doing. How do you run 1,600 kilometers? So I reached out to this guy that I found named Martin Parnell. He lives in Cochrane. And if you know Martin Parnell, he's this super crazy guy. He started running when he was 47. And he's done all these epic quests. He's climbed Kilimanjaro. He's a Guinness World Record holder. He's ran a secret marathon with these women in Afghanistan. And he's legendary for this one run where he ran 250 marathons in a year. This man knows how to suffer. And so I reached out to him, I was like, hey, you don't know me, Martin, but I'm gonna need some help here. I'm doing this run. And I need to learn and figure out how do I do this. So I called him out of the blue, and he's like, yeah, come on out to Cochrane, we'll have a coffee. So I went out to Cochrane, and I had a coffee with him, and the nicest man you'll ever meet. And he gave me advice and tips and his experiences, and I was sharing with him all the things I was doing. And the funny thing was, it was the first time I knew I was in a bigger room. Because Martin wasn't like fanboying me. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was just like a regular Tuesday for Martin. He's like, yeah, okay, here's what you're gonna need to do. And he started telling me all these things. Fast forward later on into the summer, I'm into this thing. I'm like running into Airdrie. I'm coming into Airdrie. I've got about 1,000 kilometers that I've ran already at this stage. My body is destroyed. I'm limping, I'm hurt. My will is gone. I'm just like beat up. Martin, I got to Crossfield, and I was going to run into Airdrie that day. I had about 30 kilometers to run. And I got out of the car, and Martin was waiting for me, all in his run gear. And he's like, I'm running with you today. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad to see you. It's like, I have so much to tell you, Martin. And he could see I was just physically destroyed. I was limping. I had the look in my eyes that you could imagine 1,000 kilometers would do to you. And he's like, hey, before we start, why don't we go in this gas station and grab a coffee? Like, oh, okay. So we go into the gas station, we get a couple coffees, and Martin's going around the store in Crossfield going, hey, do you guys know who this is? Do you guys know this guy? This guy's he's running across the province, and he was telling everybody, the cashier, and I'm like, oh my God, Martin. We grab our coffees, and these two pasty white guys in running gear were walking down the side of the highway, drinking coffee. Sasha's following me in the car, going like 1 kilometer an hour. And I'm like pouring my guts out to Martin, like, Martin, you won't believe what happened. I got almost attacked by a bear, and I got hit in the head by a rock, and I was telling him my whole thing. And he listened. And I could tell, it was like just in that coffee shop, he's like, yeah, what did you think was gonna happen? Suck it up. So we're coming in, we drink our coffees. We start running. We're starting to see the outskirts of Airdrie come into view. And then Martin says, okay, I'm turning around. I'm like, what do you mean you're turning around? He's like, this is your moment. You go. And he sent me. And it was such a moment of just that in action, of seeing your mentor And that fueled me for a long ways. So here's my question for you. And I've seen a few smiles and a few looks. Who's in your circle today? What makes up your circle? Who are the anchors in your life right now? I sure hope it's not the person sitting next to you. It's going to be a long drive home. Who gets your energy? Who takes your energy? Who are the passengers in your life today, just along for the ride? It's okay. They're not going to push you. They're not going to elevate you. How much time do they get? And then, who are those engines? Who are the people that have gone where you want to go? The people that raise you up, that call you out. That when you tell them, hey, I'm going to disappear for a year, they don't flake out. They go, that's awesome. How do I help? They won't be upset if they don't hear from you for 3 months. Do you have those? What rooms are you in? Is it time to find a new room? No surprise, the third area of leveling up, coming from an ultramarathoner, is your body. It's your fitness. If you want to reinvent yourself, if you want to go to the next level, if you want to really go somewhere far, you have to take the vessel with you. You have to reclaim your body. I'm going to live to 103. I thought about this for a long time, and I'm an overachiever, so anybody can live to 100. I'm going to do 3 more years, just because. But years and years ago, probably about 20, when I first moved to Airdrie, is when I really got serious about running. And I learned to run using a microwave. I didn't have all the fancy gadgets and the gear and the shoes that I have today. I'm so sorry, babe. I've got like 300 pairs of shoes. I trained with a microwave. I literally took my car one day and I drove around my community, mapped out 3 kilometers. I'm like, perfect. I went to Walmart. Honest to God, I bought the shittiest pair of shoes I could ever see. And then I put them on and I start doing this loop. And what I would do is I'd look at the microwave and I'd go out and I'd do my little loop, and then I'd get back in the house and I'd look at the microwave again and see how long it took me. And my only goal, my only thought process was just try and go a little faster next time. And I got to the point where I'd be yelling at my wife, Sasha, what time is it? Perfect. And I'd rip out the door and I'd go. And I'd run back in. What time is it? And I just try to save a minute at a time. And for the first while, I couldn't even make the loop without walking. I couldn't do a kilometer. My knees hurt, probably because of my crappy shoes. But I stuck with it, and I kept going, and I slowly built up the stamina. I could make the loop. And then I set a big, scary goal, something that I encourage you to do, to run a half marathon, 21.1 kilometers. To me, running around my block to 21 was like crazy. How in the world do you run 21.1 kilometers? I trained myself with my microwave. I got a little bit better pair of shoes. And I went and I ran this half marathon all by myself. My mom was there to pick me up at the finish line. And I remember, and this is something, if you've ran anything in your life, this doesn't go away. You get halfway through these races, no matter what distance, you really question your sanity. Why did I do this to myself? I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. It's so hard. My lungs are dying. I was just like, it was so awful, but I finished it. And I remember finished it thinking, how in the world do people run a marathon? Like, how do you double this torture? Like, that's crazy. So I set that as my next goal. But I knew I needed some engines. So I hired a running coach. I started training with all these other athletes. I got myself some better gear, an actual watch. I learned how to train. I learned about my stride. I learned about proper nutrition, pacing strategies, and I trained with these real badass runners in Calgary that just pushed me every single day, and I got myself ready. And I ran the Calgary Marathon. And since then, I've gone on to run dozens of marathons around the world. I qualified and ran the Boston Marathon. I did my crazy run across Alberta. Last year, I ran 200 miles in Tahoe, the Tahoe 200. So 320 kilometers nonstop for us Canadians around Lake Tahoe for a belt buckle. And I'm not telling you this because I'm bragging. The reason I wanted to point that out is because if you'd have told the guy that was looking at his microwave that you're going to run 200 miles and it's going to take you 96 hours, you're going to hallucinate, you're going to have sleep deprivation, and you're probably not going to walk super good for a month after, he wouldn't have believed it. It would be just so like, no way. And I think that's what happens to us when we look at other people. I'm not saying you have to sign up and become a runner. If you do, amazing. But if you really want to do something massive, I think what happens is we look at other people's highlight reels, but what we don't notice is the behind the scenes, the thousands and thousands of hours it takes to go from there to there. And I think we get so fixated on that we forget about the process. And that's the most important and the most fun part of transformation, is falling in love with the process. Because it's discipline that transforms you, not motivation. There's a reason why people get all motivated in January or December, set resolutions that die before February 1st. And what I've learned, and running has been such a great teacher to me, is there's a time to think big and there's a time to think small. You need to have big, scary goals that gets you excited and motivated, and something that's a stretch. The kind of goals that go, ooh, that would be crazy. But that would be really cool if I could do that. You need the big, scary goals. But then you also need to sometimes remember the behind the scenes, the small steps. I remember in 2016 when we did this crazy run. I was getting deep into it. I'd ran through Calgary. I had about 300 or 400 kilometers left. I was limping super bad. I was feeling sorry for myself. The weather was awful. We'd gotten to this stretch where I had like several hundred kilometers left to go. And we were in the middle of nowhere. We were on these back roads. Nobody cared. Nobody saw us. Just some pasty guy running down the side of the highway with a lady with flags in the back of her SUV following him. People either thought I was a hero or absolutely crazy. Probably crazy. And I remember every morning I'd get up and I would finish my run and I'd spray paint the highway with a strip of orange spray paint, so I knew the next day where I had to pick back up and keep going. And it'd get harder and harder to go back to that stupid orange line. And this one particular morning, I had like 35 kilometers to get to the next camp. And what would happen is I'd get out and I'd start running, and some days I started to warm up and I felt okay. This particular day, it was so awful. Every step hurt. And so I barely started running. Sasha following me, and I stopped and I turned around. And I got back in the car. And I just sat there. And my mind was spinning. Because there was times earlier in the run when I just visualized, man, I can't wait to get to the US border. It's gonna be so amazing when I get there and have a bunch of people waiting for me. I'm gonna kiss the border. And I had this whole thing that I thought about for a lot of the summer, and that fired me up a lot of days. This day, the thought of like 300 more kilometers was overwhelming. And so I get in the car and I'm sitting there, spinning, feeling sorry for myself, questioning my sanity. And I was like, I'm quitting. Today I'm quitting. And I was just thinking about how am I going to tell Sasha that it's over. And then, for some reason, I just lifted my head up, and in the horizon was this row of trees. And I remember saying to myself, okay, just get to those trees. Run to those trees, and if you still feel like quitting, you can quit there. So I got out of the car, surprised my wife. She's like, oh, he's going. Okay, we're going. I kept running, and I ran to those trees. And then once I got to those trees, there was another tree line. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to run to that next tree line. And then I got to the tree line. And then there was this big power pole in the distance. Like, I'm just going to get to that power pole. And I just kept chipping away. And I ended up running my 35 kilometers that day. I don't know how, I just did. And I carried on, and that was like a key turning point for me in the summer. And I think what happens to us is we get really excited about these big goals and what we see and what we visualize as our potential, but then we get overwhelmed. And that's when you have to bring it back to a small step. What is your next step? What is your next tree line? Don't lose the big scary, but get to the next tree line. Set some scary goals. How many people drive to the same place every single day, like to your office or to work, or you have a routine? Yeah, right? How many people, maybe it's not to work or it's somewhere you do it all the time, where you forget like large chunks of a drive? Right? You're like, I don't even remember the last 20 minutes. What just happened? Here's the caveat I'll say first. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person. But what I am is, I know someone that's hacked my brain. And I'm going to talk to you about the mind. The reason you forget about driving to work is because your brain loves it. It's exactly what it wants you to do. Your brain is wired for the easy path, the path of least resistance, comfort, routine, habit. Any chance it gets to check out, it's taking it. Your brain's job is to protect you. That's all it's for. It's always assessing risk and looking for you not to die. That's all it's doing for you. And what it uses past data to predict the future. And so it will go back and go, ooh, that happened to me before, so I better be careful here. Or, oh, I know this pattern. I know this drive down the Deerfoot. Or I know this route. And your brain goes, perfect, we are going to check out right now. And by changing that and working on your mindset, you can radically transform your potential. The Navy SEALs are probably the most elite soldiers that exist. And to become a Navy SEAL, you have to go through this really difficult training. It's brutal, the torture they put Navy SEALs through to become. It starts off with like hundreds of soldiers. They take them through what's called Hell Week. And Hell Week is exactly what it sounds like. It's brutal. They have to carry all this stuff, and they're doing push-ups, and they're laying in the freezing ocean, and they're doing all this brutal stuff for a week straight. They get their hands and their feet tied. They throw them in the pool like that, and they have to like tread water with their hands and their feet tied, and they have to go down and grab stuff for hours and hours. And there's a bell. And whenever you want the torture to be done, you just ring the bell and you're out. And you just listen every day to these guys dropping. And at the very end, just a handful of soldiers make it. And the funny thing is, it's not these big, huge, strong guys that get to the end. It's the guys with the strongest willpower, the guys with the strongest minds. Because what the Navy SEALs have learned is this thing called the Rule of 40. And basically the way it goes is your brain's job, as I said, is to protect you. And what your brain will do is when it believes you're at 40% of your potential in anything, physical, life, whatever, your brain will start to tell you it's time to stop. But the problem is your brain is only using past data to establish that. And so what the Navy SEALs have learned is when you take yourself into those uncharted waters, when you push yourself beyond your limit, when you take yourself in these really tough, difficult places, your brain has no choice but to recalibrate. Your brain resets. So your brain goes, oh, so my limit's not here, it's actually here. And then you push again, and your brain goes, oh, actually my limit's here. Or maybe it's here. If you want to change your mindset, you have to take yourself into the hardest places. You have to force it. But the problem is your brain wants to sit right there because easy, comfortable, safe. But the potential isn't there. When I disappeared for a year, I really made it my mantra to look for all of the hard things in my life. Not just physical. Yes, I did some crazy running stuff, but all the hard stuff. The difficult conversations, the things I didn't want to do, the situations. I always looked for the hardest thing. And I started to train my brain. Look for the hard. Look for the resistance. If you think back over your life, think of all the most difficult things you've gone through, the biggest challenges, all that stuff that you probably didn't have a lot of control over. Those are the things that have defined you, that have made you stronger, that have made you who you are. It's not the easy stuff. It's not that. It's the hardest things. When you disappear for a year and you give yourself this solitude and you really listen, you will discover that there's potential that you had no idea existed. Because how often have you spent really getting to know who you are? I was listening to this talk the other day and this guy said that happiness to him was being able to really learn who he was and to be able to be that version of himself everywhere he goes. And that's the opportunity. When you guys came in today, you met my beautiful daughter, Hunter. And she encouraged you to grab a card. Did everybody grab a card? So the card basically is an opportunity. And I hope it's something that you think about. We didn't ask you to show it to anybody. I don't want you to share it. And it's just for you. It's a signal. It's not a weakness. But perhaps it's where your journey could begin. Maybe you grabbed the card that said self-belief, confidence, because maybe you lost that somewhere along the way. Maybe those dreams and goals have slowly died in the chair. Too old, impossible, I couldn't do it. Maybe you picked the difficult conversation card because there's a couple anchors in your world that you need to cut. There's something you need to say. Or maybe you picked life purpose because you know you're not currently living it. Your current reality and your purpose is not aligned. And you're stuck. But the opportunity, like I say, is to really have the courage to start somewhere. And I hope that that's a signal for you. Whatever you picked, I hope that gives you somewhere to start. And I hope that you have the courage to disappear, because it's really, really hard. But if you do, it'll change you. And it's really simple. It starts with a dare. I dare you. I dare you. I dare you. I dare you. I dare you to disappear for a year. No posting, no boasting. Just become a ghost. Work on yourself. Find yourself. Love yourself. Level up every single area. Don't master it, just level it up. And I promise you, if you do, you will be unrecognizable 1 year from today. And I cannot wait to meet that version of you. Thank you very much.